Hey guys, in today's video we'll be taking this photo from this to this. I'm going to be editing this directly in Lightroom without using any presets and trying to bring out as much information as I can from the raw file right here. So let's open up Lightroom and get straight into the edit. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is cropping this because I have this little smudge here, which I suspect is from the lens, or I didn't really see that until I copied the pictures to my computer. So I'm going to be cropping it to get a better composition. The next thing I'm going to be working on is the white balance. So basically I used the auto selector or this speaker here to give me a general idea of where the white balance should be or what the white balance should be. However, I still end up tweaking it, just to give me a general idea of what the computer thinks, okay, this is how it should look. I always adjust that to what I like. When it comes to editing photos, I always follow a general, I would say, 3-step process. First is to work on the lights, then I work on the color, and then I work on additional things, effects, sharpening, vignettes, all those extra things to spice up the images. But I always do that last after I'm satisfied with how well exposed the picture is and how well the colors look. And so the first thing really which I'll be doing here is just to work on the exposure. In this case, I'll be dragging that down a bit because it's just too much. It looks too bright, so I reduce the exposure. Now I work on the other parts of the image. So I'll just play around with these sliders to get a proper exposure. So the goal of all this that I'm doing is simply to get the picture to a level where the brightness looks good, and that is why I'm usually just playing around with the sliders to see how it looks or to see what effects it has until I can get the image to where I want it to be. Then I'll use the vibrance to boost up the colors. Once I'm done with this, the next thing is to work on the colors. I think I like how the image is looking now, and it looks much better than where we started from. Now it's time for me to work on the colors, and I'll be using the HSL tab because this is where I can adjust the different colors to what I want them to look like. So I'm just going to be pushing and pulling the sliders now. I notice that the water is green in this case. I would prefer it to be blue anyways, but we'll fix that later on. So for now, I'll just use the green slider to work with that. Yeah, so I'm going for a vibrant and colorful look. And the main colors in this photo are that of the water, the sky, and every other thing is kind of like minimal, but the sky and the water is what I really need to work on in order to get the look I am after. And so I'm just going to adjust all the other color sliders to complement that, but the major thing I'll be doing would be to get those two colors as vibrant as possible. So I'm just going to tweak the colors a little, adjust the saturation and the luminance as well. There you can see how far we've come just working on the lights and the color tab. So let me push that more with the DAs and break up the shadows a bit. Yeah, that looks good. So the first thing I'm going to be fixing now is the water. I want it to be blue. I don't like this green cast, so I'll try and fix that with the curves and see if I can do that. So I'm using this selector here to get the range of where the water falls under, and then I'm using that to reduce the grain. So I'm working on the grain slider because that's what we're trying to eliminate. And so you can see that it's making it a bit, yeah, it's doing a good job anyways, but it's not doing a good enough job. So I'm going to be using a mask instead, and it kind of affects not just the water, but it's also affecting the building and the sky. So I'll just use a mask to fix that. I'm going to be using the color range. So how the color range works is you pick a color or you pick a part of the photo and it selects other areas of the photo with that same color. So I'm just going to be picking up the water. So it selects the water, it selects the buildings, part of the buildings, the background, and part of the sky. Now I don't want to change anything in those areas. All I want to work on is the water. So I'm going to be subtracting using the linear gradient. As you can see, now I have only the water selected. Yeah, I still have some extra area selected, but I can always deal with that. So I'm using the temperature now, cool that down a bit. I'll work on the exposure a little, increase the shadows, increase the highlights, just try and get more light in there. Yes, and the reason why I'm dropping the clarity here is because I wanted to have this soft feel. Well, I'm not pushing that too much anyways. I'm just going to be reducing it a little. Whenever I'm not working with a preset in Lightroom, I'm usually just testing things out, dragging the sliders both ways just to see what I like and I roll with it. There's never really a particular setting that I'm going for. Each image is different, so I'm usually just doing a lot of testing to see what looks good on that particular picture I'm working on. So that's basically my approach to editing in Lightroom. So now that the water looks better, I think I do not need this curve anymore. Yeah, so you can see that the water the mask does a better job of fixing the water than the curve. So I don't want that purple tints that I have on the buildings and the sky and the background anymore, so I could just easily remove that. So if you remember, when I applied the mask, some part of it touched the buildings and the trees at the background. So yeah, so I'm just going to be using the brush to clean that up so that I have my mask only on the water. And some parts of the water also did not get this setting applied to it, so I'm also using the brush to add to that. So okay, now that is done, the water looks better. Now let's work on the sky. So now I'm just going to apply a mask to the sky. Yep, it does a really good job selecting it. Yeah, so just reduce the temperature a bit, make that blue. That looks good, but it looks a bit too bluish now. So I'm going to go to the overall temperature and I'm just going to warm that up. Yeah, so this looks much better. So at this point, the green slider no longer affects the water, and now I'm strictly touching only grass, only the trees anyways, but yeah, you get my point. So now I can adjust that to how I want it to be. I'm trying to see what I prefer here. Yeah, so I'll touch up all the other colors a bit. But overall, it's looking really good, and it's looking much better than where we started from. Now I'm happy with the way this photo looks. But now this is the final thing I'm going to be doing in terms of color anyways, and that's on the calibration panel. So I'm just going to push up the blue saturation slider to give it that extra punch. I don't know, but I really like doing this because it just makes photos better in my opinion. Although it also depends on the style of editing you're going for, and it depends on that particular photo. If I was trying to get kind of like maybe a film look or something saturated, then this won't really work as well as it does for this particular photo. But because of this picture, the style of edit I'm going for, and I want this really colorful, vibe, I'm going for this really colorful vibe. And so pushing up that blue saturation just gives it that extra spice. Okay, so at this point, I'm okay with the light, I'm okay with the color, and it's just time to add the extra effects, add a bit of sharpening, add the vignettes, and that would be all for this photo. So when it comes to adding sharpening to photos, I usually like selecting the area I want this effect, or the areas I want the sharpening to be applied to. And so you make use of the masking tab. You hold Alt and move the slider. It starts off very white, which tells you that the sharpening is being applied to every area of the photo, or to every area that is white. So basically at this point, what is happening is the amount of sharpening I'm adding is only going to be applied to these white areas, which is the outline of the buildings, and then this white spray caused by the boat and the boat itself. Now I can increase the detail and the amount just to get those buildings looking sharper than they originally were. Yeah, and that's all for the photos. So now you can see the difference between where we started from and where we are at now. And we did all this in Lightroom. No presets, nothing at all. Just working on the different sliders, working on the lights, working on the colors to get to this. So that's it for this video. I'm looking to make more tutorial style videos like this, simple editing in Lightroom and maybe even in Photoshop Camera Raw. But we'll see how it goes. Let's see if I can bring out one every week on this style of videos, different from maybe the other kind of videos where I just sit and talk about other photography and creativity related stuff. But yeah, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.